Hey everyone, it's Dara. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Dara K. Fulton, and on this channel we talk all things motivation and some creativity in the mix, and we also talk about all things English as a second language. I have a blog called Motivation ESL, and Motivation ESL focuses on all things being an ESL teacher or how to become an ESL teacher. Welcome, welcome. So today we are going to talk about something that a lot of my fellow teachers like to ask me, and that is the first day of ESL class. Now, for those of you who have been on my channel for some time, way back in 2017, I did one of my very first ESL videos for this series, Motivation ESL, called The First Day of ESL Class. And that video has gained over 7,000 views. It's one of the highest viewed videos on this channel. And let me tell you, friends, I am so surprised because I was in the same room many years ago with no ring light, very dark. I just threw on something really quick and said, hey everyone, it's Teacher Dara. So I am so excited to do this video again because I have some new tips I would like to share with all of you. So without further ado, let's get started. It's the first day of your ESL class and you're wondering, will I do a good job? Can I do this? What did I sign up for? Oh my goodness. Let me get my coffee, let me get my water because I don't know about this. You enter your classroom, whether it's in person or remote, and you see all these lovely faces. It could be a small class of maybe 10 students, or it could be a big class of 20 students, and you're thinking, uh-oh, everyone's looking at me. What do I do? What do I say? Do I have my lesson planned correctly? What books am I going to use? The first thing you want to do is simply breathe. Friends, let me tell you, back in 2005 when I first started this beautiful journey of ESL teaching, I had no lesson plan, I had no books, I had no way of knowing what to expect. So the only thing I was able to do is simply breathe. So let's breathe. Okay, now the second thing you want to do is, first and foremost, depending on the school that you work for, they usually will provide an attendance list so you know who's going to be in your class. Now that's pretty simple because you can just have the list in front of you. You can then, if you are on Zoom for example, you can then see the names of everyone and do a quick attendance check. If it's in person, you can also do this as well. Say, okay, I'm going to take attendance right now. What is your name? And have everyone just say present, right? But even before that, you want to make sure that before you start taking attendance and doing all the admin stuff, introduce yourself. Now I know this sounds very simple and so many people say, Teacher Dara, duh, I know how to do that. But do you know that when you are entering the class for the first time and you are nervous and you're not feeling quite comfortable, we tend to forget that very important thing. So simply introduce yourself. What I usually do when I start my classes, especially if it's in-person learning, as you can see I have a whiteboard behind me. What I usually like to do is write, for example, if it's a morning class, good morning. If it's say afternoon, good afternoon or good evening. Then I write today's date. If it's a beginner class, I may not do that because that's a good way to get them talking, like what is today, right? And then I will put, my name is Teacher Dara, I am your teacher for this class. Now again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but sometimes for some students, if they can kind of see what you're writing on the board and then you start to introduce yourself, it kind of gets them interested, right? Because they're seeing all this on the board, they're seeing your happy face, and yes, that's another thing. Make sure you look pleasant, and I'm going to explain in one moment. So the first thing you want to do is simply say, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, students. My name is Teacher, whatever your name is. Now, depending on your preference, you don't have to call yourself teacher if you don't want to. Some schools, all you have to say is your first name. My name is Bob, or my name is Jane, for example. Or you could say my name is Miss and your last name, or Mr. and your last name. Remember, if you're married and you prefer to be called Mrs., you can do that as well. However, for me, I love when students call me teacher. So I always say Teacher Dara because it's easier. But again, it's up to you. Make sure that the name you share with your students is the name you want to be called, because there are times where teachers like to change up their name a little bit, and that can be very confusing. So please be clear about that from the start. Even if you're on a Zoom call, make sure that you do the same thing. Introduce yourself. Make sure you're looking at the camera like I'm doing right here, because when you look at the camera, everyone in the room can see you and they feel that you're looking at them. If you're doing like this, then it gives off the impression that you're really not paying attention, and that could change the dynamic of the class. Some students may get bored, they might turn off their video, whatever the case may be. Look pleasant. It is so important to look pleasant, and I have to say it that way because some people may not be the smiley, happy type. I'm an exception. I love to smile. I love to look pretty. I enjoy what I do. But again, when you are feeling nervous on your first day, you may not be feeling like this. And if you are smiling, you're gonna smile like this because you're so very nervous and you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do. So smiling definitely helps because it helps you to relax. However, you want to be natural with your smile, okay? You don't want to come to the class. Hello students, my name is blah, 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 right? Because it doesn't matter if this is in person or this is remote. It can be very intimidating to your students if you look so serious. Now, I know this can be a little controversial because some teachers have told me, hey, I'm not the smiley type. I have a serious look. That's okay. But try to relax your face muscles a little bit. Don't be so, okay? Because the most important thing you want to remember for yourself and for your students is this. If you establish comfortability at the beginning of your class, the first day is your first impression for them and vice versa. If you establish comfortability on your first day, I promise you your students will follow through with that. If you come across very strict and rigid on the first day, then your students would either adjust to that or they'll be incredibly intimidated by you and they may not give you that participation that you want. So you want to make sure that you, okay, be relaxed, be natural. You don't have to be smiley if that's not your personality, but just be natural, okay? You want to be welcoming. Think of it this way. When you were in school, did you feel comfortable when teachers gave you this mean look, okay? Or they spoke to you like, you, answer the question, okay? Of course not. Even as children, we did not feel comfortable with teachers like that. So be pleasant, give good eye contact, be natural, okay? And just be yourself, because people will feed off of your energy when you are yourself. Now, after you introduce yourself, it is so important to get to know your students, okay? It doesn't matter if it's in person or online. Now, there are many ways to do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is focus on, I'm going to briefly mention in person because I know today a lot of us are teaching online, so I'm going to spend a little time with that. But let me mention now that I've only worked with adults, so this is really for my educators who work with adults. But again, if you work with children or teenagers, you can adjust this appropriate for your class. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. This is good for you because this gives you the opportunity to listen to their English, okay? Pay attention to their body language, and it kind of gives you a first-hand look at what you can expect from them. When you're working with adults, one of the things I've learned the hard way, okay, is you have to know how to approach adult learners differently than children, okay? You don't want to come off too demanding. You don't want to come off too disciplinary, right? You know, too much of this, I'm the boss, I'm the teacher, I'm your teacher, you know, because that can make an adult learner do two things. One, resent you and just be incredibly difficult, or they might be extremely fearful of you and not speak at all, or they'll just drop out of the class. So this is a way it gets a little so-so. The best advice I can give to that is allow your students to introduce themselves. If you're teaching a lower level class, like a beginner or low intermediate, model, okay? If you're teaching advanced, you can simply say, okay, everyone, I would like everyone to introduce yourself. For example, what is your name? Where are you from originally? How long have you been studying English? That's for my advanced students. But if I'm teaching beginner, I may approach this differently. On the board, I would, for example, even if this is remote, you can actually have a whiteboard in your background and you can actually write out what you want your students to say and model. Hi, what is your name? My name is, and you? My name is, nice to meet you, nice to meet you too. Simple as that. But for my intermediate, you might add questions like, what do you like to do in your free time? What is your favorite color? When is your birthday? So you can expand this as much as you like, but the key is you want to make sure that they tell you their name, where they are from, and I always like to add this for all of my classes. Why are you studying English? And the reason why this is so important for teachers is because this allows you to get an idea of their purpose for learning English, because everyone's reason for learning English will be different. For some people, it's strictly to communicate. For others, it could be to build their vocabulary, to improve their grammar skills. So it really, really depends on the student. So always take that time to ask. And again, if this is a beginner class, you may have to model this a little bit, but this is a good way for you to assess your students in real time with everyone. Now, in person is a lot easier to do this because you can even have each student turn to their partner and ask these questions, which makes it very interesting. You can do this remotely as well, but keep in mind that there will be students who will not feel comfortable being on camera. Some students will just have their name displayed, or maybe they'll have a picture to represent who they are, but you will not see them on camera. The best advice I can give to you is you want to encourage your students to turn on their video, because that way you can see their body language and it gives you a better assessment of how they speak and how comfortable or uncomfortable they are. Now, on the first day of class, what I like to do is I just like to kind of go with the flow. I'm not overly strict about that, but again, you are the teacher, you decide how you want to go about this. Same thing, have everyone in the room introduce themselves. If you want to have students ask each other, that's great. If you want to put them in break rooms and have them do that and then you just listen in, it's really up to you. But the most important thing is you want to find out who they are and why they're learning this language. What is their purpose? That will also help you when you do your lessons and how to approach your students per class. Now, what if you are in a situation where you was told you're going to teach beginner, and you enter this class and you realize that half of your class is beginner and the other half is not beginner? You realize that the age range is definitely different. You have maybe 19, 18-year-olds to someone as in their 60s or 70s. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to bring everyone together, right? You have different levels of English, you have different age groups. Of course, it could be multicultural, which is great in my opinion, or it might be majority one nationality and maybe 2 or 3 different nationalities. How do you find the balance? Okay. One way to combat this, especially on your first day of class, is you want to, before you enter your class, you want to make sure you have prepared some type of activity to get students talking. I can't stress this enough, because most times when we start a class, okay, for the first time, we have our curriculum. We know what we need to teach. We know the software we use, all the textbooks, things like that. But I have to stress, you want to make sure that somewhere during that first day of class that you get them talking right away. You don't want to do all the talking, because the whole purpose of learning is for them to practice and to learn, right? For beginner levels, this will be a little more structured. However, when you get to higher levels like higher, intermediate, and advanced, this is where you can have some flexibility. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go off the curriculum or you just do whatever you want. Of course, you work for a school, you follow what you need to do, but try to incorporate some type of communicative activity. Maybe you can expand the introduction a little more. Maybe you can think of a topic and have students talk to each other about it, just so you can listen to how they communicate. You may introduce certain vocabulary. For example, maybe you want to practice formal versus informal conversation. And you want to keep this basic, okay? Basic vocabulary, basic grammar. Just start with the basics. Even for the advanced level, keep it simple. Because again, you're still trying to assess where students are. And if you have a multi-level class, you really want to be careful with that, because if it's too basic, if it's too advanced, So you want to try to find a middle ground. And if you pick something like a topic that everyone can relate to, or at least can talk about, for example, what is your favorite food? Believe me, that's something we all can talk about, and that gets everyone together in conversation. You get to listen to their English, they get to hear your response. So it feels more like conversation than teacher to student. Your first day of ESL class, it depends on the situation. Some of these classes will go very smoothly, depending on the size and how many people and the support that you may or may not get from your school. I have to say that, but what you want to make sure that you do is prepare yourself. And one way to do that is make sure you already have your lesson planned before class. Try to get to class on time. I always say get there a little earlier just in case. If there are any concerns or questions, try to get those questions in with your supervisor or your staff before the class begins. Make sure that you have some type of extra activity just in case if you run into any issue. For example, let's say the software is not working if you're doing this remotely, or let's say the material that you was told to use, you're not allowed to use it anymore. Have some backup material. Maybe show them a YouTube video, or maybe you can do a conversational practice. As long as you're prepared before class, you'll be okay in class. Be natural, smile, okay? Try not to be overly strict, okay? Let your students know your why. Let them know why you teach. This is also a way for them to get to know you. Tell them a little bit about yourself. Why are you an ESL teacher? Do you like it? I would hope that you say yes, because if you don't like doing this, it makes no sense to do it. But be natural. Make this a flow type of experience. Let them know that as adult learners particularly, that we're all here, okay? I'm not better than you and you're not better than me. You want them to feel comfortable and you want to feel comfortable with them, and vice versa. And you want them to feel comfortable with you. That is so very important. And I promise you, if you establish that on your first day of class, the rest will be smooth sailing. And I promise you that you will not only enjoy this new class that you have, but you will feel good in the process. I hope these tips helped you on your first day of class. If you would like to see the old video that I created back in 2017, I'll leave that up here somewhere in the cards. If you're interested in ESL coaching and you want to know more details as to how to teach your students on the first day of class or any class, please send me an email. I will leave that in the description box down below. I would love to help you. Please check out my website, AppliedESL, for all your learning needs. I have books, worksheets, and video lessons for fellow teachers like you who just need some supplement materials to help enhance your classes. So definitely check that out. Thank you so much for watching, and always try your best.